All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. It's about just shy of 1:02, so we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. My name is Brad Wingler from MGO. Thank you for joining today's webinar entitled Social Security, the Choice of a Lifetime. My name is Brad Wingler with MGO. We've got a couple other folks on the webinar today from MGO. We've got two other investment executives, Justin Petrus and Parker Kaysgen, as well as our Chief Operating Officer, Ted Triska. And then our featured speaker for today is Dave Harris from Nationwide. And I'll introduce Dave and give a little bit of more information about him in just a minute. Some of you may be aware that we've held a number of these webinars over the past couple of years in an effort just to try and educate our clients and help them prepare for retirement. Typically, Justin and I deliver those presentations, but today, in light of the fact that this is a very detailed topic, we decided to bring in an expert in Dave Harris to do today's presentation. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Number one, we normally try to keep these presentations to about a half hour or less. Today's probably going to run a little bit longer. It's probably going to run about 45 minutes or so. That's because of the details in the information. But Dave does a good job of trying to keep this as short as possible. So we'll try to be as cognizant of your time as we possibly can. Two, some of you have already submitted questions, and we appreciate that. We always try to encourage questions during these webinars. Today is no different. The one thing I would ask is try to keep your questions general if possible, not specific to your situation. We don't necessarily want to discuss somebody's personal situation on a live webinar. However, if you do have specific information that you'd like, or specific questions that are specific to your situation, at the end, we'll give you instructions on how to send us those questions. And we're happy to answer those questions about your personal situation. We just want to make sure that we're not doing it in this particular format. Also, when you submit questions, if you could submit them through the Q&A function as opposed to the chat, just because we want to try and keep those, we'll try and address as many of them as possible. But if somebody happens to ask a personal question, we don't really want that to go through the chat. So with that, I will introduce Dave and turn the presentation over to Dave Harris. Dave is the Vice President of the Insights and Solutions Field Team for Nationwide. Dave's been with Nationwide for 25 years, joined Nationwide in 1997. So he's earned every single one of those gray hairs that he's got on his chin there. I've known Dave for about almost 20 years now. Very, very professional individual, somebody that I respect a great deal. And I will tell you that as somebody who's been in this business for about 30 years, I've got a lot of experience with Social Security. With that said, as much experience as I have with Social Security, I still get stumped. And when I get stumped, Dave's the subject matter expert that I go to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dave for today's webinar.
Great. Brad, can you hear me okay?
I hear you great.
Perfect. Well, first off, I want to thank you for that great welcome. Thank you very much. I definitely owe you for that. And, like Brad said, even though I've been doing this presentation for a very long time, I've studied Social Security before that, there are still times that I get stumped by questions as well. And I have a group of people that I go to. And so Social Security really is a very complex part of a retirement income plan, but it's also a very important part. If you take a look at the title of our presentation today, it's Social Security, a Choice of a Lifetime. And when we were first trying to figure out the title and what we wanted to try to get people's attention, I thought maybe this would have been a little overkill, a choice of a lifetime, but it's really not. For most of us, we're going to get one chance to do Social Security and get it right. Now, there is a rule that if you turn Social Security on and within 12 months, turn it off and repay every dime that Social Security paid out, you can get a one-time per lifetime do-over. But for most people, that's really not an option. So when you turn Social Security on, it is that choice of a lifetime. And as we go through the presentation today, I want you to keep in mind that there are so many different options when it comes down to Social Security. I'm going to ask you to look for two things. Number one, in your situation, kind of look at Social Security as a range on when and how you can file. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through the presentation, obviously. From the other side, we're going to be talking about different situations when it comes to Social Security. So some that a lot of people know, things like individuals. We're going to get in depth on that, but we're also going to talk about like joint spouses. We're going to talk about divorce situations. And we're also going to just high level talk about things like children and Social Security and what that means. I want you to think about different scenarios for yourself, for your friends, for other people that could be impacted by Social Security, and just see if there's any way that you can either help yourself or help someone else. And I'll get into more depth on that, obviously, through the presentation as well. So as we get started, one thing that I want you to know is that I am not going to be talking about any kind of products today. That's not my job. That's not the focus. Of my 25 years with Nationwide, 15 of them have been in this role. My job is strictly a speaker on many things retirement and retirement income focused. That's my job. Up until COVID, I traveled pretty much every week, about 90% of the time, and would be doing these presentations live. The great thing is now we can do live, and we can also do meetings like this over the web. But again, no product. What we are going to talk about really is threefold. We're going to start off, we're going to talk about Social Security and why it's that choice of a lifetime. We're going to get into the basics behind Social Security, and then we're going to talk about a tool that you all have access to. It's an analyzer. There's no charge to use this, and this can show you a lot of your different options and help you make the right choice. So with that, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to get us started with the presentation. For the first part of the presentation, I'm going to turn my camera off. I'll turn it back on as we transition through the different topics, turn it off as we go through the topics. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. When you take a look at filing for Social Security, the number one thing that you're going to want to take a look at is that for most people, you're going to have a time between the month you turn 62 and the month to turn 70 to turn Social Security on. So from the month you turn 62 until the month you turn 70, everybody has access that has earned a Social Security benefit to turn their Social Security benefit on. There is a couple situations where people could file for the benefit before that. One is disability. One is where you have a spouse pass away and a surviving spouse has a benefit based off of that deceased spouse. And those you can file before 62. But in everyone that has earned a benefit for themselves, 62 is the earliest you can turn it on, and 67 really is the latest. You could wait, but there's no financial reason to really wait. Now, if you look at all the months in between 62 and 70, honestly, there are a lot. And what is the difference between it filing at these different ages? Well, besides those 2 points we talked about, 62 and 70, there's one additional point that really is meaningful for everybody on this call, and it's going to be what Social Security refers to as your full retirement age. And what that's going to be is going to be based off of the year that you were born. You're going to either have a full retirement age of 66 all the way up until 67. So everybody on the call, as it stands today, our full retirement age is somewhere between 66 and 67. We'll talk more about full retirement age, and we're going to talk more about what I'm going to mention next as we get into the basics behind Social Security. But at this point, what I want you to know is that your benefit that you've earned for yourself is all based off of paying into Social Security. So every year that you pay in, you're building that benefit for yourself. And what Social Security is creating for you is your primary insurance amount. Your primary insurance amount, referred to also as PIA or PIA, that is the amount that you are entitled to at full retirement age. Now, we're going to talk more about that again as we get into the basics, but those are the three major points when you're looking at filing for Social Security off your own benefit. The month you turn 62, the month you reach your full retirement age, and the month you turn 70. Now, one thing that my group had to ask is why are so many people filing before they reach their full retirement age. So what's going to happen is they're going to receive, anybody that would file for the benefit before full retirement age is going to receive less than 100% of the benefit that they've earned for themselves. And I've had some really good answers to that. One that I had is, I need the income. Well, if you need the income, then this is potentially one of the best ways to get it, depending on your situation. But okay, if you need the income, this is a way to be able to take care of that for you, at least to some degree. Other ones are, I'm building this into my overall retirement income plan. And I've seen this where people will use Social Security earlier, allowing their other investments to stay invested, knowing that they have beneficiaries that those investments will be able to transfer onto, as opposed to Social Security. There's no real death benefit with Social Security. There really is no beneficiary. So another good reason. People have taken the time to think through it. They looked at what was going to be the best for them and they made that choice. But I've also heard a lot of reasons that are questionable. One, this is when my parents took it. I had a really good friend that told me I should file at this age. I didn't see any reason not to. Those are all the ones that I want to challenge. Now, I am not going to tell you to take Social Security early, at full retirement age, or at 70. I'm just going to say take it seriously. That is the key. It's a choice of a lifetime. It's a building block to a good retirement income plan, because if you think about what Social Security really is, it's that guaranteed income stream that you can't outlive. And when you look at Social Security and its impact for people in retirement, it really is that building block that starts a good retirement income plan off the right way. Retirement is really all about replacing income from investments or from things like a pension, Social Security, so you don't have to work, trade your time, energy, and effort for that income to live. Now, what I always like to do is I like to start off with a very quick and easy example. What this is this is a married couple, Jim and Linda. Jim, right now, he is 66. He is at his full retirement age based off of his work history. He's entitled to receive right now $2,600 a month. He could wait until 70 and he'll receive more on a monthly basis than that $2,600. He could file now, receive that, or in between now and 70, and he would receive a little bit more than that $2,600. Linda is not yet where she can turn her own benefit on. She has to be at least 62. But if she would wait to her full retirement age, based off of her work history, she could receive a benefit right at $1,900 a month. If she files early, she'll lose some of that benefit and have a reduced amount paying on that monthly basis. But if she waits later, beyond her full retirement age, she'll get more, just like Jim. The question they have is, when should we file? And I'm going to show you two examples. I'm going to show one where we are filing as soon as possible and one where we're going to wait and file towards that 70 mark. So the very first one, what we're going to do is we are going to file for Jim today. We're going to file for Linda the month she turns 62. For both of these scenarios, what's going to happen is we are going to say Jim is going to live to 85, Linda's going to live to 88. And between now and the time that Linda passes away at 88, we're going to see about a 2.5%, 2.4% cost of living, somewhere in there. And we're seeing that cost of living adjustment on Social Security benefit every single year. So we're seeing that increase every single year between now and the time that Linda would pass away at 88. If we take a look at that very first situation where they file as early as possible, from now until the time that Linda would pass away, they would receive right at about 1.4, almost $1.5 million, again, of guaranteed income over a significant period of time. But that is that mailbox money. That is that money that's coming in every single month. If they would wait, all things being equal, they would receive about $227,000 more, again, of guaranteed income. Now, I've had people come back and say, well, you know what, that is a lot of money, but it's over such a large period of time. Well, that is true. But when you think about it, this means other investments aren't going to have to work as hard. The big thing that we're going to have to take a look at for everyone on this call, everybody that's ever looked at Social Security or will, and when and how to file, is your life expectancy. That is the number one thing that we have to have a good understanding of. And as we all know, we don't have a lot of information on our life expectancy. We don't know when we're going to pass for the most part. I can show you the averages, and I can show you what actuarial tables will tell us. And what you see is today, the average 65-year-old male has a 50% chance of making it to 85. 65-year-old female has a 50% chance of making it to 88. And where you have a married couple, both 65, you have an average of 50% where one person will make it to 92. When I say 50% chance, what that means is that 50% of people will not live that long, but the other 50% will live longer. And as we're thinking about that, that is one of the first things we have to consider when we're looking at when and how to file for Social Security. The number one thing that will determine at the end of the day if we're receiving as much from Social Security as possible at the end of the time for us receiving Social Security is our life expectancy, either as an individual or as a married couple. So we have to take everything into consideration. And quite frankly, that's why the basics do matter. As we go through the basics, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a good rundown. This is going to be about a 10,000 foot view of all of the different moving parts and pieces behind Social Security. My goal here is to be able to make sure that you have an understanding of those moving parts and pieces, and to start to give you a good idea on the different filing solutions, the options that you have, determining where in that range may make sense for you. As far as, do you want to file earlier? Do you want to file later? Do you want to file at full retirement age? And looking at those situations and making sure that you're taking a look at all the different situations that may impact you and a loved one, friends, family that may not have this information. You can provide this to them as well. So as we get into our second part of the presentation, as we get into the basics, the number one thing that I want you to know about Social Security is there's nothing basic about it, number one. And number two, what Social Security was designed to do and what it does today are two very, very different things. You go back in time to when Social Security was created, it was designed to do one thing for three groups of people. It was designed to provide guaranteed inflation-adjusted income for those that reached old age and could no longer earn income or as much income as needed themselves. It was there to provide income for when a working spouse passed away. And then it was there for people that became disabled and could no longer earn income for themselves. It was a safety net. It provided that guaranteed inflation-adjusted income for those three situations. Now, one question I'm going to ask you to think through here is, do you think old age is 65 right now? And my answer to that, and as Brad said, as my graying hair on my chin shows, I do not think 65 is old age today, by no means. So when you're looking at this, Social Security back in the 1930s, when it was created, 65 was old age. And the average male life expectancy was 58. Now we're in 2022. And I just showed you the tables, the data on what happens when a person, either male or female or a married couple, turns 65, what their life expectancy looks like from there. So it is not the same thing. What was a safety net is that foundation, that cornerstone of a retirement income plan. So that's why we have to take time to really understand the moving parts and pieces behind it. And the very first part is all going to be based off of you working and paying into Social Security. When you have your very first job, I remember my first job, I worked for Baskin Robbins. It was a great job at 14, quite frankly, for many, many reasons. I mean, free ice cream whenever you want is not a bad thing. but I still remember getting my first checks and seeing all the taxes being taken out and talking to my dad about what it is. And he's telling me about the benefits of Social Security at 14. Quite frankly, I'm going to tell you, I didn't fully understand it back then, but I did now doing this for so many years and obviously growing and having my career. I've seen all the years that I paid into Social Security. So that first job, that first paycheck, where I paid in, started building my primary insurance amount. And every single year that I've worked and paid into Social Security from that point in time now counts towards my primary insurance amount. To earn a primary insurance amount where you will receive a benefit as early as 62, you have to have worked and paid into Social Security for at least 10 years. Now, if you've worked and paid into Social Security for at least 10 years, you now have a benefit that, again, you can claim as early as the month you turn 62. You have your full retirement age, which we'll talk about here as we go through the presentation. But just because you've worked and paid in for 10 years and you have a benefit doesn't mean that you've maximized your benefit. And when I say maximized, when Social Security is determining what your primary insurance amount is going to be, they're going to take a look at all those years you've paid into Social Security. If you've paid in for 20 years, great, they're going to look at all 20 years. If you worked 50 years, they're going to look at all 50 years. Doesn't matter if there was a break, doesn't matter if there was a very long break. Doesn't matter if you only worked half a year. It's a matter of how much you're paying in and having everything total up. So in this situation, Social Security is going to look, no matter what the situation is, how many years you've paid in, 10, all the way up to the longest I've seen somebody is a little over 65. I think it was 66 or 67 years of paying in. And with that, every single year, every year he was still working, was still counting towards his Social Security benefit, because Social Security only looks at the highest 35 years. And now I've paid into Social Security for over, funny enough, let's see, it's over 30 years. So Brad, again, thank you on that, pointing out the chin. And with that, I am now looking at maximizing my Social Security because now I have all those numbers covered. For 30 years, I get to 35 years, I'm sorry, and that's when I will have all my numbers covered. I'm not yet to 35. But getting to those 35 years will mean I will have no zeros in my average. And what that means is if somebody had worked and paid into Social Security for, let's just say, 20 years, Social Security is going to use 35 numbers to create your average. And what that does is they will have to put in 15 zeros along with your 20 years of work history. And if you think about what 15 zeros will do to that average with 35 numbers, that's significant. If you're like me, it would be about 4 years now that I would have zeros. But my dad, he worked 48 years for GM. So in his situation, every year counted, but they only looked at the highest 35. And this comes up a lot when people say, well, I worked, I then stayed home, or I took care of a family member or children, whatever. Should I go back to work later? Well, there could be a yes or a no to that. And that's another reason why working with Brad and the group, they can help you understand it. Does that make sense if you're looking at Social Security? So we can help with a lot of that, but a lot of that gets missed. When you're looking at Social Security itself, if you have worked and paid into Social Security, you have information out on Social Security's website. All you need to do is go to ssa.gov/myaccount. So again, ssa.gov/myaccount. It's the last thing here on this slide. And what this will do is allow you to access your account. If you already have an account set up, you just sign in. And what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to pull some good information from there. If you haven't set up an account, it'll allow you to do that. I started doing this years ago. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, when you pull up your account, you're going to be able to pull your most current Social Security statement. And the very first thing that you're going to see is you're going to get an idea of what would happen if you would file for your benefit at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. And you're really going to see all those years in between. And it's the statement is going to give you an idea on what your monthly benefit is going to look like. So what ends up happening here is we start to get a good understanding of what portion of our income needs can be covered by Social Security, depending on, when, what year, what month we file. So that information is very good to have. It starts to make Social Security a little bit more tangible. We can start to use that in that retirement income plan. This statement will also show things like disability. It'll give you an idea on beneficiary and survivor information. So not really a beneficiary like we think where it's something is going to pass on, but for that surviving spouse, the benefit that they can still receive. And then the most important to me is it's going to give you an idea of your work history. So your years of paying in. And this is another one of those questions that I'm going to ask you to really think about. Do you think Social Security ever makes a mistake? Well, if the answer is yes, in your mind, which I know it is yes, because I've talked to people in Social Security and they said yes. In this situation, the place where the mistakes are made the most is right there. It's going to be on your work history. I had a gentleman in Michigan that had 15 years of zeros that should not have been there. His company took the taxes out, paid the taxes also, but they filed, it was really their accountant that filed wrong for 15 years. And this gentleman caught it right before he went on Social Security. It's our job to go and take a look at that for ourselves, us as individuals, to make sure that that looks right. I run this report every single year, the day after I file my taxes. I just want to make sure that it looks right. It's a great habit to get into. When you take a look at our next part of Social Security, it's going to be your full retirement age. When are you going to reach that full retirement age? Well, it's anywhere from the year of 66, that month you turn 66, up until that month you turn 67. So if you're born in 1943 to 1954, 66 is that magic age. But if you were born in, say, in 1957, it's going to be 66 plus 6 months. And if you were born in 1960 or after, it's going to be 67. Now, yes, Social Security could add another tier if they so desire, and there's talk about that. They may. Unfortunately, I will probably fall into that if they end up adding that extra tier. I was born in 1971, so there's a chance that I may be impacted by it, and others obviously as well. But as it stands today, this is what we're looking at. And here, when you start to take everything into consideration, our primary insurance amount, our full retirement age, I want to give you an idea of what would happen based off of when you would file to the percentage of your benefit you're going to actually receive. If your full retirement age is 67, that's when you're going to receive 100% of the benefit that you've earned for yourself that month. If you would want to file as early as the month you turn 62, you're going to permanently give up 30% of your benefit. If you would wait beyond 67, say all the way up until 70, you will receive 124% of the benefit that you've earned for yourself, because you're going to get an 8% credit for every year that you wait beyond your full retirement age. The key here is the difference between the month you turn 62 and the month you turn 70. If you're looking at that, it's about a 77% difference in monthly income. And what I want everybody to understand is that is what's in your control when you file. If you file at 62, it is going to be that permanent reduction. But if you have other investments you want to let stand and grow for good reasons, that can make sense. If you need the income and you want to turn it on at 62, that can make sense. But this is the one thing that we actually can control when looking at Social Security. And if we had a benefit where we were going to receive $1,000 a month, I can show you that simple example where instead of the 1,000, if we filed at 67, if we filed at 62, now we're looking at $700 a month. All the way up until, if we waited beyond at 70, you're going to get that $1,240 a month. And just think about how much that income can mean to you on a monthly, an annual, and a very long-term basis. Now, there are tons of filing situations here, and we are going to cover the top three during our time through this presentation. I'm going to ask that everybody, this is kind of being that second thing that I ask everybody to take away. This is my number 2 takeaway for everyone, is look at these different situations. So you have individuals, again, we're not going to cover that, but that is one where you're going to have one chance to really get it right. We want to take that seriously. We have spousal benefits. We have surviving spousal benefits. We have divorce situations. Those 3 we will cover. We have disability. We have people that work for the government and have government pensions. And then we have disabled children, or I'm sorry, dependent children, including disabled children. And all of that fits into what we're not going to cover during this presentation, but it also fits into things that we can help you beyond this presentation. The one that I've unfortunately been working with quite a bit over the past 3 years, is dependent children. I've had 3 different friends pass away from cancer in their late 40s through their mid 50s. They had young children, each of the 3, and there is a benefit that child or children can receive based off of that deceased parent up until the age of 18 or 19, depending on high school and when they're going to graduate. A lot of times people miss this. You can only retrofile 6 months. So if you miss it for 2 years, you're only going to receive 6 months retrofiling. That means you've given up 18 months of that benefit. Again, it's one of those things that a lot of times people don't think about. For the ones we are going to cover, we're talking about spousal benefits. And first off, and I've been doing this presentation, like Brad said, we've known each other for a very long time, and I've been doing this presentation for over 10 years now. And I have 2 young children. They're not as young as they obviously were, but my son's 17, my daughter is 13. And when my daughter was in 1st grade, they had every child in the class where 1 week of that school year would be just about them. And now I used to travel all the time, so 90% of my time was on the road. Luckily, this first part fell on a Monday, and I hadn't traveled yet, so I had a chance to go in. And it was a day about our daughter, and it was, meet the family. So I had a chance to go in, and first question the teacher asked is, "Hey, so what does your mom do?" And my wife stays at home, works very hard, takes care of the kids, the house, the family. My daughter did a wonderful job of saying everything that mom did for her and the family. Then she said, "So what does your dad do?" And she said, "Oh, he just travels and talks." And that's all I got, quite frankly. And you know what? That's my fault, because that's what I told him for years, because to say what I go out and talk about and what I'm doing, it wouldn't really mean anything to them. But about 3 years ago, the reason why I'm telling you this long story is about 3 years ago, I wanted my kids and my wife to know what I did, to actually know that I do go out and travel and talk, and this is what it is. So I said, every year I get new presentations, updated presentations. So I want you to be my first audience. I'm going to go through, I'm going to put my transitions and everything together, and you get to sit through my presentations and all. My daughter has seen Social Security now 3 times. She started when she was 10, learning about Social Security. And the best part is on year 2, my wife said, "Hold on, so there is a spousal benefit for me. I don't have my own benefit, but there is a benefit for me based off of your benefit that you've created?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "So that's kind of like my pension for putting up with you." And that answer is yes. Yeah, she does have a pension for putting up with me. We've been married now 21 years, so married over 1 year. So check that box. She would have to be at least 62. She's not quite to that point. And I would have to file for my benefit. I file for my benefit. We've been married long enough over that 1 year. My wife's at least 62. She can file for up to 50% of my primary insurance amount. So going back to primary insurance amount, if you think about, those 35 numbers, whatever my number was or is, she would be able to receive up to 50% of that amount. Now, what would happen when I pass away? Obviously, we don't know who's going to pass first, but based off of her eating a healthy lifestyle, exercising, and not being on the road for so many years, I'm going to put my money on her. So chances are I am going to pass away first. And with that I have to look at two things personally because I want to set my spouse up, my wife up for what would happen when I'm gone. There are two different paths this takes. And so when we're looking at the benefits, and I'll talk about those in a second, but to be eligible, the couple has to be married for at least 9 months. And you cannot remarry before the age of 60. And I've had a lot of situations where this is something that will disqualify someone. They remarry many times, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but remarry at their late 50s and still expecting this benefit as early as 60. And that becomes a challenge. Don't remarry until after the age of 60 if you're going to fall into this benefit, if you plan on taking advantage of this benefit. The one unique thing with the surviving spousal benefit is that you can take the benefit based off of a deceased spouse as early as 60. Now, I'm going to give you two examples for the benefit itself. When you're looking at the benefit itself, like I had talked about on the spousal, my wife could receive up to 50% of the benefit that I've earned for myself while I'm alive. That holds true here. So if, I am in that situation, I've turned my benefit on, she's receiving that 50%, I pass away, she's entitled to up to 100% of the benefit that I was taking. So she'll step up to that full amount. There will be an overall reduction as opposed to two people now being one, but she has a chance to go up to that higher amount. Now, here's the unique thing. If I have not turned my benefit on yet, and I pass away, my wife would most likely have to go work outside the home. She builds up her own benefit. Now she has two different benefits. She cannot stack them and use them both at the same time, but she could use one benefit at one point in time and then switch over to another benefit. So let's just say my wife would turn her own benefit on, being the smaller of the two because she hasn't earned a benefit yet, but would. And with that, she has her own benefit. She turns hers on earlier in retirement and allows mine to grow all the way up until 70, getting all those additional credits and then switching to mine. Those are some strategies that a lot of times people utilize. But again, this being a choice of a lifetime, we have to make sure that we're taking all this into consideration. Then you look at divorce situations, everything I just talked about, the spouses and the surviving spouses hold true. Both of those hold true as long as you were married for at least 10 years. That's another disqualification factor that a lot of times people don't take into consideration. And I'm not saying to take it into consideration if a divorce is something that someone is considering. But it's one thing that if you're looking at the benefits, we have to understand. Married for at least 10 years, now you have access to everything we just talked about. The spousal benefit is the exact same as the divorce spousal benefit. The situation where you had somebody pass away and that survivor benefit, it's now the divorced spouse survival benefit. The numbers are exactly the same. And the two, if there was a spouse and then an ex-spouse, those two would never have to share any part of the benefit. Each will be paid the full amount or have access to that full amount. One thing that you want to take into consideration before we move on to the final part of our presentation is this. And I know, especially with COVID and a lot of things that are going on, there have been people that have retired early or maybe unfortunately been displaced. And one thing initially, a lot of times people think is to go turn Social Security on. And that is not a mistake as long as we take everything into consideration. As this is that one little star that I want to put on the page to say, just make sure you take this into consideration if you or somebody is in that situation. Because if you would file for a Social Security benefit before full retirement age, so that month you reach your full retirement age, what's going to end up happening is you have a limit on earned income. This has nothing to do with investment income. This has nothing to do with other types of financial accounts that you have that you use to create the income. It's only earned income. So you're trading your time, your energy, and your effort for a paycheck. But if you're not yet to the year you're going to reach full retirement age, your limit that you can earn for that year is $19,560 for, in this case, 2022. And then every $2 above that limit that you would earn, $1 of benefit gets withheld. You could lose your entire benefit for the year. Now, the year that you're going to reach full retirement age, but not yet the month, you have a limit of $51,960 that you can earn. If you surpass that, $3 is kind of where every $3 above that limit, you're going to have $1 of benefit withheld. But now, once you reach full retirement age, once you hit that month, a couple things happen. Now you can earn as much as you want. Yes, you're going to pay taxes on it, but no, you don't have any withholding. And if anything was ever withheld, it will start to be returned to you based off of your life expectancy. So just one of those things to keep in mind. Unfortunately, in 2007 and 2008, I did see where a lot of people took early retirement. The market turned, a lot of people went back to work, and this became an issue for a considerable number of people that I was working with. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Now, as we get into this final part of the presentation, the big thing that I want you to think about here is really that first and most important thing that I talked about that I want you to take away. I want you to take away a better idea on the different options you have for filing for Social Security. I want you to look at it holistically, not just as, okay, I'm at a point that I'm looking to retire, I'm just going to turn this benefit on. I want you to think about this through all the different situations that you potentially could have. I want you to think about this with filing, during that span between 62 and 70, all those months in between. And the best way that I can help you do that is by showing you what you have access to. There's no charge for any of this. This is a tool that you all can access by working with your team here with Brad and everyone on the call. What we can do is we can run a report based off of your information, and the report is going to provide you with your different scenarios. If you go back to what I started with at the very beginning about how you can get the most dollars at the end of the end of Social Security, we have to take into consideration your life expectancy. We don't know what that is for everybody down to the year, so we have to look at different options. What our report will do for you is you give us some data, we go ahead, we run it through the analyzer, and we will give you the highest and lowest you can expect to receive as far as end dollars from Social Security. The great thing here is that now you've set kind of the highest and lowest. You've set the bookends. A lot of points in between, but now we know the highest and lowest. What we can start to do is we can start to hone in on what type of benefit we're looking for. When would be that right choice for us? Because again, no one size fits all. We'll show you break-even points based off of either your life expectancy or a married couple based off of both of your life expectancies. And what we're showing is that example from the very beginning, Jim and Linda. Jim's life expectancy is along the bottom. Linda is going up that left-hand side, 70 to 100. If we think that Jim's going to live to 75, Linda's going to live to 80, well, we're in that light gray if we just find where those 2 points intersect. But if Jim is going to live to 80 and Linda is going to live to, let's just say 90, now we're in the dark blue. So we may want to think about maybe pushing one of those benefits or even both back a little bit to be able to provide better income for us as we live longer through our retirement. What we're also going to be able to show you are the glide paths. And what I mean by glide paths is the income that you need will either be in the silver or gold line, and they look like kind of an airplane taking off, compared to what you can expect to receive from Social Security. So as you look, the glide paths and where the dark blue starts, dark blue is Social Security, you can see where the silver line is. That difference is going to be the income that we need to make up from other sources. We can see how much is going to be covered by Social Security. And in this example, this is where Jim and Linda are both living. We're receiving benefits from both of them. The golden line is when Jim passes away, Linda's left with just one benefit. In this case, she does step up to Jim's. And you can see where the income need comes down a little bit, that golden line being below the silver. But then we have a little less income from Social Security as well. So now we have that gap in between that we have to take some time, consider the ways that we're going to be able to cover that gap to get you the income that we need. And then what we're doing is we'll show you this information also in number format, so you can be able to know the exact numbers, not have to try to just look at the chart. Charts a nice way of seeing the information on that spreadsheet. The way we run all of this is based off of a one-page fact finder. It's front and back. It'll need information like your information from Social Security on what your primary insurance amount is. We'll take a look at what your age is, and if you can give us an idea on what you think life expectancy for you and a spouse would be, we can take that into consideration. If you don't have any idea or don't want to let us know, we can use the national average. That's totally fine. We even have different types of reports that we can create for you that gives you a better idea on life expectancy by looking at your health, your wealth, where you live, and how you live. We look at people more just like you, and we can give you a better idea on life expectancy from that as well. And then what we do is it takes about 5 days. We run the report, and then it will come back to you from one of the people on this call as far as being able to provide the detailed report to you. But then if you want to go through it, you can reach out to them. I know Brad has gone through this numerous times. I mean, and I know Brad and I've worked together on this as well, where I've gone through one of the reports with him and other people. We're here to help you understand what Social Security is and how to take advantage of it. Don't leave money on the table. I've been working on a presentation where I found people that have made mistakes or left money on the table, and I'm trying to get this through compliance, and we'll see if it ever happens, but it's an idea on 10 mistakes to avoid. And it can be as simple as a person that was a married couple. One person didn't work outside the home for 10 years and did not have their own benefit and didn't know about the spousal benefit. Believe it or not, that gets missed more often than you would expect. So things like that, we just want to make sure that we're clearing this up for you and helping you make that right choice for you. Doesn't matter if it's at 62, at full retirement age, at 70, we just want you to take all the information into consideration and make the right choice. So Brad, anything you want to add, team?
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
No worries.
So first of all, Dave, thank you very much. That's great information. I will say that as somebody who works with participants when it comes to planning for retirement and working on their financial plan at retirement or pre-retirement, one of the biggest challenges that we have is trying to help them figure out when's the right time to take Social Security, because that really factors into somebody's overall financial plan in retirement. And so I'll tell you that Social Security 360 Analyzer tool is a phenomenal tool. Doesn't cost you a dime. And we are happy to submit that to Nationwide for you. We'll follow up with a copy of the questionnaire. The one thing that we ask is that you complete the questionnaire, and then we're happy to submit that for you, and then also review it with you. I've done that for a number of my clients. They really appreciate it. You know, I can't tell you, the common question that I get as a financial advisor is, when should I take my Social Security? It's a hard question to ask or answer, because I don't know when you're going to dearly depart this world. And unless you have a really good idea of when that's going to happen, I can show you the pros and cons with a tool like this, but I can't tell you exactly when you should take your Social Security when you retire. But it's a great tool to help make that decision and help you feel more confident in the decision that you've made. So with that, before we wrap up, I do have some questions, and if you guys have questions that you want to put into the Q&A, please do so. But I have some questions that were submitted prior that I'm gonna pose to Dave, and some of these are actually questions that we'll have to follow up individually with.
Sure.
One of the questions is, explain the windfall elimination provision and the effects it could have on my Social Security benefits.
Okay.
How many years does a person need to pay into Social Security so their Social Security benefits are not lessened due to the windfall elimination provision?
Give me 1 minute while you see behind the screen here, and I can give you a good idea on
Pay no
windfall.
attention to what's happening behind the screen.
That's right. Let's find it here. And give me 1 second. And every time we get new presentations, like I say, we get the general one at the beginning of the year, but then they do so many updates throughout. This is the second one we've got this year. So give me just a minute. Is that what I'm looking for? Here we go. I hate with these three. 1 second here. So,
And as Dave's pulling that up, I think part of the reason why he doesn't put that in the standard presentation is just, excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I almost sneezed. Oh. Excuse me, I apologize. The reason Dave doesn't put that in the standard presentation is it doesn't affect everybody, but it is a great question. So go ahead, Dave.
it's a wonderful question. And this is one I've helped people with quite a bit. And the idea here, and if you don't mind, I am going to turn the camera back off because there are a couple of things I'm going to want to look at as well. Because I want to make sure I'm giving you everything without not looking down. So just give me a second. But the big thing here is that if you have worked 30 years and paid into Social Security for those 30 years, and they're substantial earning years, you will then not have any reduction in Social Security benefit based off of benefit that you've earned for yourself. I've seen this a lot with school teachers, firefighters, police officers, where actually a good friend of mine, he's been a firefighter now for 25 years, and he's one 24-hour shift on, then 48 off. And he actually has started or gone to work with and now runs his own plumbing company. And he has people that work for his company that cover when he is not working, and then, or when he's not able to work there because he's a firefighter. And then on his days off, that's what he does. He's done that for 25 years. And if he goes 5 more years, or had 5 more years from a previous job, he would then have no reduction in his own benefit from Social Security. So it's 30 years at his substantial earnings. And that is a sliding scale. Social Security is going to, for most years, increase compared to years past, as far as what a substantial earning is. The best way to get the data on that would be by going to ssa.gov/myaccount and just type in windfall elimination provision. And what you're going to do is you're going to be able to get a good idea on what substantial earnings have been up through actually 2022. So Brad, do you think that answered the question okay? Do you want me to go any further with it?
I think it did. If the person who submitted the question, if you want more details, you can add that in the Q&A, and we're happy to provide more details. We do have some other questions out there.
I do have one question that was pre-submitted here. This is from an anonymous participant. So when starting to take Social Security, should they have taxes taken out so when their annual 1040s are filed, they don't owe money or receive a refund? And if this is true, how do they arrange with Social Security for this to be withheld?
It is going to be through Social Security. And what I find, there are two things. Number one, you can have taxes withheld and directly, for the IRS on that monthly basis from Social Security taking care of it. And then also Medicare Part B premiums. So when you're 65 or older going on Medicare, Medicare Part B premiums, like this year for the average person, most people, over 90% of the population, it's $170 per person per month. What ends up happening is many times Social Security will have that reduced as well ahead of time. The one for Social Security for the taxes will be taken out through Social Security. That's where you're going to let them know. When it comes down to Medicare, it's actually Medicare that you would have to let know that you want things to be withheld from Social Security, unless you've already pre-filed. If you filed before the time that you've reached 65, you go on Medicare. Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B will automatically be turned on for you. And you would, if you didn't want Medicare, you'd have to turn them off, those pieces off. But I find if you're asking what I've seen as far as what people have done, it really does depend on having it taken out versus, just paying at the end of the year. And what I've seen for the most part is it really breaks down to how a person or a couple is comfortable with taxation and having a bill at the end of the year. I know people that want that refund. If you want the refund, the best way to be able to get that would be having those taxes taken out ahead of time, or making sure that with all the investments that you have that you're going to be using to create your income, that you've had taxes paid to cover Social Security as well. I have other people that want to pay as little in taxes throughout the year and then write the check at the end of the year, so in April. And either way is totally fine. But if you are in that first camp and you do want to have that refund or owe less, you would want to go ahead and get that taken care of early as possible, or, with Social Security when you're filing, or as early as possible if you've already turned it on. And that would start through Social Security office. Now, you bring up another point. I'm sorry, I'm going to just go off on one little tangent here for just a second, but taxation and retirement is a very important topic. And that's where, and now I'm going to put a shameless plug in for my team. We do have a presentation called Tax Efficient Retirement Income. So we talk about the different types of income streams, how they're taxed, and ways to minimize that taxation to maximize your income and your assets. It is a vital part of a retirement income plan. Forget about our presentation at this point. Just that topic itself is a very important part of your retirement income plan. And I appreciate all the questions. I'm glad that we hit this one, as just because most people do miss this. They forget that Social Security to some degree is going to be taxable for most people. So
Dave, we're coming up on the top of the hour, so to be mindful, we're just going to take probably one more question, and then we'll try to answer the other ones individually. But question via the chat: is there any strategy to a married couple taking Social Security when they've both worked their entire lives? Should they both wait until 70 if possible? Will there be any benefits to one take it early and the other wait? Short answer to that might be Social Security Analyzer tool.
No, yes, that'll give us really the bookends and help us make some different choices. That's a great question. And it really, it's the foundation of really the entire Social Security conversation is, okay, both of us have paid in. It could be one of us have paid in. It could be a lot of different, but it's what do we have as benefits? The very first thing you're going to have to take into consideration there is the one thing we don't know, and that's life expectancy. And the key here is that life expectancy is going to mean everything on filing. And what I would encourage you to do is use one of the other tools that we have, again, no charge. It is the healthcare cost analyzer that we have. Brad, I know you're familiar with it. What it does is it will give you a good idea on what healthcare cost will look like from Medicare through your retirement. But it also gives you a good idea of your own, either for a person or for a married couple, what your life expectancy can look like for someone just like you, based off of location, age, gender, wealth, health, all of it. And we can provide of course, it's not going to be accurate, but a more accurate life expectancy. Now, there are some really good things with looking at having two substantial Social Security benefits. You could turn one on at one point in time and then let the other one grow. Especially, I see that used a lot when you have one person that has a longer life expectancy and one that has a shorter life expectancy. You want to be able to enjoy as much as you can while you're both living, but you want to make sure the person that's going to live longer is taken care of. So I took Brad's very short and correct answer and made it incredibly long. So Brad, I'm sorry for that, but yes, the analyzer will give us a very good place to start.
I appreciate that, Dave. It is now 2:00, so We really appreciate everybody joining. If you have additional questions, or if you'd like to discuss your individual situation, you can submit the questions to us at askmgo. It's ask@mgo-inc.com. So ask@mgo-inc.com. Everybody have a great day, and thank you for joining us today.